Unaware his wife was a secret CEO about to close an $847 million deal, husband called her useless and fat in front of 200 guests and walked out with his mistress. What she did next crushed him. He didn't just insult her, he did it under the blinding lights of a crowded award ceremony, with 200 people watching, cameras flashing, and a woman in a red dress smirking from across the room. Daniel Miller stepped up to the microphone, his chest proud, his smile wide, and looked directly at the wife who had stood beside him for years. Then he joked loudly, "My wife? She's basically useless, probably hiding near the buffet, eating again instead of helping." The room laughed. She didn't. At the front table, Claire Miller kept her shawl pulled tight around her soft, heavy body, trying to hold herself together as whispers spread like smoke. She wasn't dressed in luxury. She wasn't wearing diamonds. She didn't shine like the woman Daniel later walked out with. To the crowd, she looked like someone who lived small, someone who didn't matter, someone easy to humiliate. What they didn't know was this. The woman he mocked as fat and useless had stepped out of a very different world before coming to that event. Behind closed doors, Claire had just been told the board was ready for the final step of an $847 million merger that she alone controlled. The signing was set within 48 hours. She wasn't just working from home. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't weak. She was the secret CEO, known in the business world by her maiden name, Claire Hale, who held the future of an entire corporation in her hands. And Daniel had no idea he was standing on ground that existed because of companies she controlled. The night he chose to humiliate her in front of 200 witnesses, with his mistress clinging to him and smiling in her red dress, was the night Claire finally stopped protecting the man who never protected her. This isn't just a story about a cruel joke at an event. It's about what happens when a man laughs at a woman he doesn't truly know, while she quietly moves a pen that will end his entire world. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Claire's strength stay unseen the way she stood unseen in that room of 200 people. When you subscribe, you stand with every quiet soul who was mocked, underestimated, and still chose to rise. Please hit that button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 2 days before the award ceremony that would change everything, the sound hit first, sharp, startling, almost violent. Claire Miller jolted upright, her breath catching in her throat as one of the phones inside her desk drawer buzzed furiously against the wood. For a moment, the room felt too small for her lungs. The vibration was loud, angry, urgent. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the phone went silent again. Everything went still. Only then did the quiet return, soft, familiar, a blanket she had learned to wrap around herself since childhood. Claire, 34 years old, heavy-bodied with soft arms and a stomach that pushed gently against her blouse, let out a slow breath. She wasn't the kind of woman people paid attention to. Her round face, her thick hips, her quiet voice, all of it made her blend into backgrounds. She often looked like someone's older, tired sister instead of the powerful woman she really was, and she preferred it that way. Most believed she worked from home doing small online tasks. Even her husband believed that, but the truth beneath her silence stretched far deeper. She stood from her chair, moving slowly across her home office. Though she was overweight, her steps were measured and steady, almost graceful in a way most never noticed. She paused near the wall where a single frame note hung. "Silence is a weapon." Her mentor, Gregory Hale, had written that for her 11 years ago. Gregory was the first person who ever looked at her and saw more than a shy, self-conscious girl with a large body and downcast eyes. He saw sharp instincts, strategic thinking, and the ability to listen so deeply that people revealed things without knowing. The skill had saved her when nothing else had. A brief flash crossed her mind, a memory of her childhood. Claire at 7, sitting on the edge of a narrow bed in a foster home. Her small hands clutched a frayed blanket as the foster mother hissed, "Quiet girls survive. Quiet girls stay out of trouble." The house was loud, chaotic, unpredictable, and Claire learned early that noise invited danger. So she stayed silent. She watched. She learned people. That silence had become her armor. It was also the root of her greatest secret. She walked back to the desk and slid open the drawer. Inside were 3 phones, all on silent. One was a simple cracked smartphone, her ordinary phone, the one Daniel knew about. One was a black, encrypted device for her company's board and her lawyer. The third was a slim backup phone that her lawyer, Mark Thompson, had insisted she keep for emergencies, usually powered off. Ordinary Claire had no reason to have 3 phones, but CEO Claire did. Hidden behind the calm woman who looked like she worked simple jobs was a strategist who owned controlling shares in a tech firm expanding faster than anyone knew. On contracts and legal documents, she was Claire Hale, using her mentor's last name. On mail at home, she was Claire Miller. Daniel never bothered to ask why some envelopes never had his surname. Claire had spent years building the company quietly, using her ability to read people and situations. She inherited nothing. She earned everything through intellect, patience, and an almost invisible presence. She never bragged. Never told Daniel, her husband, never told friends. She kept her power locked behind locked drawers, silent phones, and old survival habits that taught her secrets were safer than trust. But today felt different. Something in the vibration of that phone, short, sharp, frantic, carried weight. She picked up the black, encrypted device, the one used only for restricted communication with the board and Mark. Her reflection in the dark screen showed a woman with tired eyes and a soft, round jaw. A woman who looked gentle enough to be dismissed. A woman her husband often teased about her weight, calling her big, slow, careless with her body. He said these things as jokes, but jokes could bruise too. Her thumb hovered over the power button. For a moment, fear from her childhood whispered inside her. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. Don't be seen. But she pressed the button anyway. The screen lit up. A single message glowed, bold and clear from the board's secure channel. Board needs your signature in 48 hours. Final merger step. Her heart thudded once. Heavy, full. The board. The merger. The deal worth more than she ever imagined possible. Everything she had worked for hidden behind years of silence. If Daniel ever found out, he would never let her walk in peace. He enjoyed control far too much. He liked her quiet, soft, and unseen. A quiet panic stirred inside her. But it wasn't fear. It was something awakening. Claire swallowed hard and set the phone down. She felt her pulse settle into something strong, steady, almost dangerous. She didn't look like someone who could shake the world, but the world was about to learn otherwise. She reached to close the drawer, but paused. Outside, she heard the faint sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Daniel returning home earlier than usual. His voice carried faintly through the walls, sharp and impatient, as always. Before Claire could react, the same secure phone lit up again in her hand. A new message flashed, this time with a name at the top that made her stomach tighten. From Mark Thompson. He cannot find out first. A chill ran through her. Whatever came next had already begun. The front door slammed so hard the wall shuddered. Claire Miller flinched, her soft, heavy body tightening with instinctive fear. Her hand hovered over the drawer where she had just hidden the phones. Her heart pounded against her ribs, deep, heavy, loud. The sound of the door echoed through the house, followed by sharp footsteps growing closer, each one landing like a warning. Daniel Miller had arrived, 38 years old, well-groomed, sharp jaw, expensive cologne, a man who walked like the world owed him applause. Claire's husband looked like a gentleman from a distance, but up close, cracks ran deep beneath the charm. "Claire," Daniel called out, his voice wrapped in impatience. "Why's the house so dark?" Claire steadied herself. She forced calm into her voice. "I was working." She had already closed the drawer. The 3 phones were out of sight again, her secret life buried under a layer of wood and habit. Daniel stepped into the room. His eyes flicked over her, slow, judgmental, taking in her round stomach, her thick arms, the way her blouse clung to the softness she often tried to hide. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile someone used before throwing a dart. "You work too much," he said, but his tone didn't sound like concern. "You know stress makes you bigger." She swallowed hard. This wasn't new. Daniel loved to lace his comments with poison wrapped in humor. Still, she tried to keep peace. That's what she always did. He walked closer and kissed her cheek, lightly tapping her waist with 2 fingers as if testing dough. But dinner smells amazing. You always get that right. There it was. Contradiction in human form. Praise, insult, comfort, cut, all in one breath. Daniel was a man who needed admiration the way lungs needed air. In public, he was gracious, smiling, generous. He told people Claire was his beautiful wife, even though in private, he criticized her size, her clothes, her quietness. He acted affectionate during gatherings, but at home, his affection was selective, given only when it served his ego. He was not the villain from a movie. He was the charming, well-spoken narcissist who made people doubt the bruises they could not see. Claire sat down carefully, feeling the chair creak under her weight. She was fat. She knew it. He knew it. The world knew it. But the way Daniel spoke about her size carved wounds far deeper than the truth itself. He sat across from her and loosened his tie. I had a long day. You wouldn't understand. Real work drains a man. Another sting, another reminder he had no idea who she truly was. She smiled gently anyway. I'm sure it was hard. Daniel leaned back. But don't worry, babe. You're my lucky charm. You always have been. Ever since you helped me get through college debt, everything started going right for me. Backstory cracked open. Claire's mind returned to the first years of their relationship. Daniel at 28, frustrated, falling behind in life, drowning in overdue school loans. He smiled at her softly back then, genuinely grateful, calling her his miracle when she used her savings from quiet night jobs and private consulting work to help him pay off his debt. He had cried the night she transferred the money, promising he would pay her back, promising he would never forget her kindness. Those were the days she believed in him. She believed in their future. She believed his love was stronger than her insecurities. But as Daniel rose, her importance in his life seemed to shrink. The more successful he became, the smaller he tried to make her feel. She studied his face now, handsome, confident, self-satisfied. He looked nothing like the desperate young man holding debt notices years ago, the man she saved, the man she believed in. He reached for her hand. We're going to an event tomorrow night. Big crowd, big chance for me. My company's giving out an award. His lips curled slightly. So try to wear something flattering. His eyes slid over her stomach. And maybe don't eat too much before we go. She felt her throat tighten, but she nodded. Okay. Daniel stood, grabbing his keys again. I have to meet someone. Work thing, he said casually, but there was a shift in his tone. Subtle, slippery, wrong. Claire watched him walk out. The slam of the door softer this time, but still heavy. She sank into her chair, breathing deeply. Feeling every inch of her body weighted with the truth she never admitted aloud. He only loved her when she made his life easier. Her eyes lowered to the drawer again. The phones inside sat silent, until her ordinary phone on the table suddenly buzzed, short and sharp. She picked it up. A new message flashed from a contact she had saved months ago under a plain letter N. Noah Ellis, the private investigator Mark had hired when Claire first admitted she was worried about Daniel's late nights. Tomorrow's event? He won't be alone? A chill spread through her chest, and somewhere inside her, something began to crack. The scream of laughter blasted through the hallway so suddenly that Claire almost dropped the dress in her hands. Daniel's voice, sharp, loud, full of amusement she hadn't heard directed at her in years. It was the next evening, the night of the award event. She froze outside the bedroom door, heart kicking hard against her ribs. His laughter kept spilling out. Too excited, too personal, too warm. Then came the sentence that made her stomach drop. She'll wear something baggy anyway. She always does. Claire felt heat rise up her neck. Her thick fingers gripped the fabric of her dress until the threads strained. Baggy, the same word he used whenever he talked about her size. She pressed closer to the door, breath held, pulse trembling under her skin. Daniel lowered his voice, but not enough to hide the tone, a tone he never used with her anymore. Trust me, he said, she won't stand out. She never does. Her chest tightened. Shame settled heavy, familiar, sitting on her shoulders like extra weight she didn't ask for. But something else slipped through the door, another voice, a woman's, soft, smooth, amused. A voice Claire did not recognize. It was just a whisper, but enough to carve a mark into her heart. Claire stepped back in reflex, hitting the wall behind her. The sound made Daniel pause. "Hold on," he murmured to the woman. "I'll call you back." Claire rushed into the bathroom before he opened the door, shutting it quietly. She stood there, breathing fast, leaning on the sink for support. Her reflection stared back at her, round cheeks, soft chin, full arms, stomach pushing against her blouse. She touched her belly with quiet sadness. Baggy clothes. Stay invisible. Stay small. Stay quiet. These rules had followed her since childhood, whispered by years of surviving in a home where silence was safety. But now, in her adult life, they were chains Daniel seemed determined to tighten. She turned to look at the dress she had chosen for the event, a deep navy gown that hugged her shape more than she was used to. She had picked it with hope, thinking maybe she could try something new, something a little braver. But now doubt settled like fog. Maybe she should wear something baggy. Maybe he was right. Her hand trembled as she smoothed the fabric. For a moment she wondered if she was foolish to believe she could walk beside her husband confidently, even for one night. A faint memory pulled her back. Daniel years ago, before success, before pride filled every corner of him. He used to call her beautiful. He used to look at her with eyes that seemed honest. He used to hold her soft body like it was something precious. But those days felt far away now. Claire stepped out of the bathroom as Daniel entered the hallway. He looked polished, excited, already imagining the applause he would receive that night. "Ready?" he asked casually. She nodded, lifting the dress slightly. "I hope this is okay." He glanced at it, and his smile faltered. "It's fine." A pause. "But maybe grab a shawl. You know how cameras are." She swallowed her hurt. "Of course." Just like always, she pushed her feelings down. As she walked to the closet, she heard Daniel's phone vibrate. He looked at the screen and smiled, a soft, lingering smile he hadn't given her in years. He typed quickly, hiding the screen from her eyes. Claire saw the curve of his lips, and suddenly she knew. There was someone else, someone he laughed with, someone he wanted to impress. Someone who made him excited about the event in ways she no longer could. And Claire felt her heart fold inward, quietly, painfully. She picked up the shawl and followed him out of the room. But before she reached the door, her own phone buzzed in her hand. A new message, from N again. "If you look closely tonight, you'll see her." Her breath hitched. Her? Claire's fingers tightened around the phone. Someone was warning her, and the night was only beginning. The applause hit like a sudden explosion, loud, sharp, and overwhelming. Claire Miller stiffened as she stepped into the bright event hall beside her husband, Daniel. Hundreds of guests turned toward the entrance, clapping for him, cheering for him, admiring him. Not for her. The sound pressed against her like a heavy wall. She felt every pair of eyes sweeping past her round waist. Her soft arms, her full cheeks. Her fat body always felt bigger in crowds, as if shame tried to stretch her skin. Daniel, tall and confident, tightened his grip on her arm briefly, not out of affection, but to guide her faster. "Come on," he muttered through a stiff smile. "Don't lag. They're waiting for me." They walked deeper into the hall. Crystal lights shimmered overhead. Music floated through the air, but Claire could barely breathe. She stood beside him quietly while dozens of co-workers came up to greet him. "Daniel, congratulations. You deserve this award. You're the star tonight." But when they looked at Claire, their smiles faltered. Some gave quick nods. Others acted like she wasn't there at all. One woman even whispered to another, thinking Claire couldn't hear, "Is that his wife? She looks different than I imagined." Claire lowered her eyes. Just as she felt the familiar sting rising inside her chest, movement from across the room caught her attention. A woman in a red dress. The red wasn't soft or simple. It was bright, sharp, almost daring. The dress hugged her slim figure tightly. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her lips, painted red to match her dress, curved into a knowing smirk. She was staring at Daniel. No, she was staring at Claire. Her phone buzzed softly in Claire's hand. She glanced down. From N. Red dress, that's her. Emily. Claire did not know her name yet, but she would very soon. When Claire looked up again, the woman in red lifted her champagne glass slowly, never breaking eye contact. The smirk deepened. Something inside Claire's stomach twisted. She looked away, but the red stayed in her mind like a warning sign she didn't yet understand. Daniel leaned down and whispered, "Stop standing so stiff. You look nervous." She forced a small smile. "I'm okay." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't ask further. He liked the attention on himself too much to worry about her. Moments later, the host called Daniel's name. The crowd roared. Daniel brightened instantly and walked to the stage with confidence Claire once admired. She stayed near the front table, her shawl wrapped tightly around her large frame, hoping to look smaller than she was. Daniel straightened his jacket, stepped to the microphone, and smiled at the crowd. His charisma poured out effortlessly. "Thank you, everyone," he began. "This award means a lot." People cheered again. Then his eyes drifted to Claire. His smile shifted, playful, but poisoned. "And I couldn't have done it without my wife," he said, pausing for effect. "She's honestly useless, probably hiding near the buffet eating again instead of helping." Laughter erupted, sharp, cruel, loud. Claire's breath froze in her chest. Did he really just... The room spun slightly, colors blurred. Heat rushed to her face, spreading from her neck to her ears. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing in her head, louder than the applause had minutes earlier. Her world shrank. All she could hear was her heartbeat, heavy, painful, ashamed. Daniel laughed on stage like he had told the funniest joke in the world. The woman in red, Emily, let out a soft laugh too. Light, musical, cruel. Claire felt something in her chest crack quietly, like thin glass under pressure. A soft voice broke the silence around her. "Ma'am," a waiter murmured near her elbow. She barely turned her head. He looked nervous, glancing around before slipping a slim phone into her hand. "Someone told me to give this to you. Said you'd recognize the type." Claire frowned and looked down. Her fingers trembled. The device looked almost identical to the third emergency phone Mark had once forced her to buy. Same slim model, same matte black casing. For a split second, her mind jumped to the drawer in her home office where she'd left hers powered off. Then she turned it over and noticed a tiny gold sticker near the edge. 2 small engraved letters, MT. This wasn't the unit sitting in her drawer at home. This was the duplicate Mark had mentioned months ago, the one preloaded on the same secure channel. Kept in his possession, just in case you ever need it somewhere I can't reach you directly. He must have passed it through staff. He must have known tonight could get ugly. The screen was already glowing. A single photo filled it. Daniel, in the hallway of the event venue, his hands gripping a woman's waist, the woman in red. Emily. They were kissing, not a small kiss, not a mistake. An intimate, hungry kiss. Her lungs refused to work. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her heart dropped so hard it felt like it hit the floor. And as her fingers dug into the shawl around her shoulders, trying to keep herself from collapsing. Daniel kept smiling on the stage. Emily kept watching her from across the room. The phone buzzed again in her hand with a new message, this time tagged clearly at the end. "This is only the beginning. M." A cold wave washed over her. The night was far from over. The moment Daniel stepped off the stage, everything collapsed at once. He didn't walk toward Claire. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't even glance at her. Instead, he moved straight toward the woman in the red dress, Emily, and without hesitation, draped his arm around her waist as if it belonged there. The crowd gasped. Some looked away, some stared, some whispered, but Emily looked directly at Claire, eyes sharp, smile wide, victory written across her face. Then she leaned into Daniel, loud enough for everyone around to hear. "Told you she'd embarrass you." Daniel chuckled, not caring who watched. Claire felt her breath freeze in her chest. The lights above seemed brighter, sharper, cutting into her eyes. Her fat body, soft and heavy, suddenly felt too big for the room, as if every flaw was under a spotlight. She tried to take a step forward, but her feet felt nailed to the floor. Daniel turned to her finally, irritation flashing in his eyes. "Why are you standing like that?" he snapped. "You look swollen. I told you not to overeat before events." A few guests shifted uncomfortably, but he wasn't done. "And honestly, Claire, stop acting useless. You're making this awkward." Claire blinked. The words hit harder than the laughter from earlier. Fat, useless, swollen, and all in front of 200 people. Her heart pounded painfully. She could feel her face burning. Her fingers shook, gripping the shawl she wore to cover her weight, as if holding it tighter could protect her from humiliation. Daniel sighed loudly, acting like she was the problem. "Just sit this one out," he said. "I have people to talk to." Then he turned, tightening his arm around Emily's waist. Emily giggled, a soft, cruel giggle that echoed in Claire's ears like a tiny knife. Together, they walked toward the far side of the room where guests parted for them with admiration and excitement. Cameras flashed, compliments poured. People greeted Daniel like a hero. Claire stood alone in the same spot, shivering under the bright lights. Her whole world felt as if it had cracked open inside her chest. For a moment, everything went silent. Her vision blurred, her breathing slowed. And then, a memory rose like smoke from her past. Young Claire, 9 years old, sitting on a broken couch in a noisy foster home, her hair messy, her dress too big, her knees pressed together tightly. 3 older kids stood in front of her. "Look at her," one girl laughed. "She's so big, she probably eats everything." "She never talks," another boy sneered. "She's useless." "Hey, fat Claire," the third child mocked. "Say something." But she didn't. She stared at the floor, fingers twisting in her lap, trying not to cry, trying not to be seen, trying to disappear. Words could bruise in ways that hands never had to. And nobody protected her then. Nobody cared when she ran to the attic and cried alone. The memory snapped back into the present. Claire's chest tightened painfully. She had survived humiliation when she was a child. But now, after years of helping Daniel, supporting him, loving him, this hurt in a different way, a deeper way. The people who hurt her in the past were strangers. Daniel was the man she married. Her knees nearly buckled. She steadied herself on a table, but no one moved to help. People avoided her eyes. They didn't want to get involved. They saw her as the problem, the awkward one, the too quiet, too big, too useless wife standing alone. The shawl slipped off her shoulder. She pulled it back up, ashamed of her soft upper arm showing. She could hear Emily's laughter on the other side of the room, high, dainty, confident. Claire closed her eyes for one long second. She would not cry. Not here. Not now. Slowly, she walked toward a side corridor, away from everyone, away from the noise. Her feet felt heavy, her heart heavier, but she kept moving. She pushed through the door at the end of the hallway and stepped into the cool night air outside the venue. The quiet was a relief, even as her chest still shook. Her ordinary phone vibrated sharply in her hand. She looked down. A message flashed across the screen from an unknown office number she recognized as Mark's firm. "Your lawyer called. Urgent. He says the board moved faster than expected. Call back immediately before Daniel gets home." A cold shiver ran through her. Something bigger than humiliation was happening, something she wasn't prepared for. Hands still shaking, she hit the call button and held the phone to her ear. Mark picked up on the first ring. "Claire," her voice came out thin. "I saw him, Mark, with her, at the event." "I know," he said quietly. "My investigator sent me the photo you just saw. Listen to me. We don't have much time. The board wants your final decision, and after tonight, we can't wait any longer." Her eyes burned, but she kept her voice steady. "What do I do?" "Go home," Mark said. "Lock the doors. I'll come to you. We'll finish this before he walks through that door with anyone else." Her grip tightened on the phone. This time, silence would not protect her. She ended the call, wrapped the shawl tighter around her shaking body, and walked toward her car. The night that shattered her was also the night that started something else. Something Daniel never saw coming. The front door clicked open, then shut with a heavy thud that echoed through the hallway. Claire Miller jerked upright on the living room couch, her breath catching. She had been sitting in the dark for almost an hour, still wearing her shawl from the event, her fat body curled inward like she was trying to disappear into herself. Her eyes were swollen from holding back tears she refused to let fall. Her hands trembled. For a second, her mind flashed to Daniel, walking out of the event with Emily in her red dress, laughing. But Daniel wasn't home. She knew that. She had left him at the venue surrounded by admiration and cameras, his arm tight around another woman's waist, which meant a gentle knock followed. "Claire," a calm male voice called softly from the entryway. "It's me, Mark." Her shoulders loosened slightly. Mark Thompson, her lawyer, mid-40s, serious face, steady eyes. A man who had been by her side for years, silently helping her build everything she owned. He wasn't family, but he had protected her like one. He was the one who had pushed for Noah the investigator, Grace the accountant, and extra phones she hated but needed. Claire pushed herself up slowly and walked to the hallway. "Mark," she whispered, "come in." He stepped fully inside, closing the door behind him and locking it. His gaze swept over her, taking in the shawl, the faint smear of makeup around her eyes, the way her shoulders hunched. His jaw tightened. "I came as soon as you called from the venue," he said. "Are you hurt?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The night felt stuck in her throat. Mark motioned toward the couch. "Sit. Tell me what happened." Claire sat slowly. The room felt too big around her, the darkness pressing against the edges. Mark switched on a small lamp, bathing the room in warm light that made the bruises on her heart feel exposed. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. "Claire, did he hurt you again? Physically?" She closed her eyes. Her heartbeat thudded painfully. "He made it public this time," she whispered, in front of everyone. Mark's eyes darkened. "What did he do?" Claire swallowed hard. "He said I was useless, fat, that I embarrass him." Her voice cracked. "And then he walked out with someone, the woman in red. He kissed her in the hallway before the speech. Noah sent you the photo, didn't he?" Mark exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing, not in wild anger, but in something colder, something protective. "He did," Mark said quietly. "I wanted you to see it when you were ready, not from strangers' phones tomorrow." Claire stared at the floor. "Everyone laughed," she whispered. "They all laughed at his joke. I felt like I was 9 years old again in that foster house." Mark was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, one she recognized instantly. Her merger documents. The $847 million deal that had been her secret lifeline. The biggest move she had ever made. The one kept hidden under contract secrecy so no one, not even Daniel, could interfere. Mark set the folder gently on the table. "The board is ready," he said. "They've moved up the schedule. They want the signing and the public announcement tomorrow morning. After what happened tonight, I told them we weren't waiting any longer." Claire stared at the folder, her breath shallow. I thought we had more time," she said. 48 hours. "You still do," Mark replied. "It'll be just under that. But we can't leave this hanging while he's out there, drunk on attention and God knows what else. Once you sign, the merger money is protected under your name alone. And tonight I already filed emergency instructions with your bank to restrict joint access. He'll still have what is legally his, but he won't be able to touch what you built in secret." Her heart pounded in her ears. "Mark, I'm scared." Mark leaned forward, voice steady. "You have every right to be, but you're not powerless, and you're not alone." A long tear slid down her cheek, the first she allowed all night. "He humiliated me," she whispered, in front of cameras, in front of his co-workers, in front of that woman. Mark nodded slowly. "I know, and he thinks you'll respond the way you always have. Silence, hiding, shrinking." His eyes met hers. "But this time, your silence can end his game instead of feeding it." Her ordinary phone lying on the table buzzed once. Claire picked it up, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. A new message flashed from N. "He isn't home yet, and he's not alone." She swallowed. "Emily." "Of course." Mark watched her face. "Noah." She nodded. "They're still together." Mark's voice lowered. "Then that means we have a few hours while he's distracted, to move first." Something cold and sharp slid through the air. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the wind had changed. The next buzz felt louder, Claire's ordinary phone vibrated across the table so hard it nearly slid off the edge. She gasped, snatched it up, and for a split second, her pulse spiked like fire inside her chest. The room seemed to shrink around her, the air tightening as if warning her something dangerous was approaching. Mark stepped closer, alert. "What is it?" She read Noah's message again, her hands trembling. "He isn't home yet. They checked into a hotel across town. You won't see him tonight." Her breath caught. Daniel, Emily, together. Not even pretending to come home. For a moment, fear swirled through her. Fear of humiliation, fear of betrayal, fear of reliving the wounds from the event. But beneath that fear, something sharper awakened. A quiet strength she had hidden for years. She took one deep breath and lifted her chin. "Mark," she said softly, "it's time." His eyes sharpened. "You're sure?" Claire nodded once. "Yes, we made Plan S for a reason." Plan S: sever, separate, survive. The plan they had drafted months ago in case her suspicions ever became proof. Mark reached into his briefcase, pulled out a thin silver tablet, and placed it in front of her. "You built a powerful network," he reminded her. "Now, use it." Claire pressed her fingers to the screen. Her reflection stared back. Round cheeks, tired eyes, soft body. But this time she didn't see weakness. She saw someone who had survived far worse than betrayal. She opened the secure app Mark had set up and typed one simple command on the encrypted channel. "Execute Plan S." She hit send. For the first time in her life, her silence wasn't hiding her. It was moving pieces she had been quietly placing for years. A young woman in her late 20s, loyal and sharp. She sat alone in a high-rise office, organizing files when her phone buzzed with the coded alert. She read the message and immediately locked the office door. Her whisper was steady. "She's finally ready." Lauren opened a hidden folder titled Project S and sent out board meeting confirmations for an early morning press conference. Subject line: Merger Finalization, CEO Claire Hale. A quiet man with glasses, working at a private workstation in Claire's company's secure server room. When he saw the coded message, he inhaled sharply and pulled up encrypted financial logs, those he had been quietly flagging at Mark's request. "Time to trace everything he touched," he murmured. Under Claire's written authorization, he compiled a full report of questionable transfers Daniel had pushed through, using her name as justification. Reimbursements, consulting, urgent expenses, all cross-checked. Tall, calm, observant. He sat inside his parked car across from a mid-level hotel when Claire's message came through. He lifted his camera, zoomed in on Daniel and Emily in the hotel lobby, close, laughing like the world belonged to them. He pressed record. "This will hurt him more than words ever could," he said quietly. He sent Mark a live feed and a time-stamped location, a precise, older woman with silver hair, surrounded by stacks of financial files in her home office. When she saw Claire's command, she adjusted her glasses and said quietly, "I always knew he was draining her." She opened a spreadsheet titled Missing Funds, 7 years of withdrawals. Row after row of unexplained transfers, money that came from accounts Claire co-owned, routed through joint cards and business reimbursements, funneled into Daniel's private investments. All documented, all legal to show, because Claire herself had signed the consent for Grace to review her entire financial history weeks ago. She sat still as Mark gathered the documents Ryan and Grace had already started sending over. Her mind drifted back to a moment from years ago. Her mentor, Gregory Hale, sat with her in a quiet conference room. His voice was calm. "Claire, listen to me. Revenge is loud, and loud things burn fast." He leaned closer. "But justice is quiet. It grows roots. It lasts." She had never forgotten those words. And tonight, they finally made sense. Mark finished skimming the first batch of reports and turned toward Claire slowly. His voice was low but steady. "He drained your savings for years," he said, "hiding it behind joint accounts, company reimbursements, small transfers spread out so you wouldn't notice. Using your money while belittling you." A pause. "This isn't petty revenge, Claire. This is justice. We'll freeze what we can tonight. By the time he wakes up, he won't be able to touch your accounts." Her heartbeat steadied. For the first time in a long time, she felt clarity instead of fear. She looked at the growing stack of evidence. Photos, financial records, timestamps, transfers, messages. Her silence had allowed him to believe she was powerless. But he forgot something. Quiet people learn to pay attention. Claire closed the folder with a final, calm motion. Tomorrow, Mark said, standing tall, we finalize the merger, restrict his access on every level, and serve him the divorce papers in public, where he can't twist the story. The room went still. Claire lifted her eyes. Her fat, soft body stayed perfectly still, but her spirit sharpened like steel. She whispered, I'm ready. Before Mark could respond, her phone vibrated again. One short, sharp buzz. This time the message was from Noah. They're leaving the hotel. He'll come looking for whoever blocked his access tomorrow. Something dark shifted in the air. The silent war had only begun. The next morning, the room erupted in flashes, camera lights exploding like fireworks, voices rising, footsteps pounding. The press conference hall was packed wall to wall, reporters pushing forward, microphones lifted, screens glowing. The merger announcement between Claire's tech firm and a global partner had drawn every major outlet in the city. Claire Miller stepped onto the stage. The intensity hit instantly. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. She felt their shock, their confusion, their curiosity. She could almost hear their thoughts. Why is she here? Who is she? Why does she look so nervous? Her soft, fat body seemed out of place among the polished suits and expensive designer dresses. She looked like a quiet guest who wandered in by mistake, but she wasn't a guest. She was the reason the entire room was full. Her assistant, Lauren, neat bun, serious expression, stood just off stage and whispered, The board is ready. The documents are prepared. Just follow the script. You earned this. Claire nodded slowly. Her heartbeat thudded deep in her chest, loud enough to drown the chaos outside. The giant screen behind her flickered with the company logo, waiting for her signal. This was the moment she had spent years preparing for, the moment she had kept secret under layers of silence and survival instinct, and now the world would know. She stepped toward the podium. Before she reached it, the doors at the back of the hall slammed open so violently the sound echoed like a shot. Daniel stormed inside, his shirt wrinkled, hair messy, jealousy and anger burning through his eyes like wildfire. He shoved past people, ignoring the shocked murmurs around him. His phone had already hit him with 3 messages that morning. Card declined. Joint access restricted by account holder. Claire Miller. Vehicle status changed. He hadn't slept much. Emily had gone quiet. His pride was raw. Where is he? Daniel shouted, voice cracking through the room. Where's the CEO? I need to speak to him right now. Reporters turned. Cameras swung toward the chaos. Every head shifted. Daniel pushed forward, almost frantic. This is illegal. Someone blocked my account. Someone froze my card. Someone stole my access. He scanned the room wildly. Where's the man in charge? Lauren stepped in front of him, calm as stone. Sir, she said, voice steady and respectful, you're disrupting an official press event. Daniel glared at her. I don't care. Tell the CEO to show his face. Lauren's expression didn't change. He doesn't need to show his face, she said slowly, because the CEO is already standing on stage. Daniel laughed angrily. What? No, she's no. He turned and saw Claire, standing behind the podium. The room went silent, his face drained of color. Claire looked at him with the calmest expression he had ever seen on her, soft, steady, and utterly unshaken. Lauren's voice broke the silence. Sir, she is the CEO. Daniel froze as if his body had turned to stone. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Claire finally spoke into the microphone, her voice echoing through the hall. My name is Claire Miller, she said, then paused. In the corporate records, you may know me as Claire Hale, and today, I signed the agreement for the $847 million merger. The room erupted. Flashes burst. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras zoomed in on her face. Board members at the front table exchanged proud, satisfied looks. Daniel stumbled back a step. You? He whispered, voice shaking. You're the CEO? Claire didn't look at him again. Instead, she turned to the table where Mark stood beside a stack of documents. Mark slid the final merger contract onto the podium. Her hand trembled, not from fear, but from release. from years of quiet suffering finally ending. She lifted the pen. She signed her name in one slow, powerful stroke. Claire H. Miller. The screens behind her lit up instantly, bright and bold. Claire Miller, CEO. Gasps filled the room. Lauren stepped forward proudly. The merger is finalized, she announced. Effective immediately. Reporters cheered. The board members applauded. People rushed to raise their hands for questions. Meanwhile, across the room, Emily, the mistress, stood near the side wall. Her red dress still glowed like a warning light, but her face had turned pale. She slowly stepped back into the crowd, her hand flying to her mouth. Then she slipped toward the exit, hoping no one noticed her fleeing. But cameras caught everything. Daniel's humiliation, Emily's disappearance, Claire's rise. Daniel grabbed the edge of a table to steady himself. Claire, we need to talk. You can't just... He tried to move toward the stage. Two uniformed security guards stepped forward, blocking his path. Sir, one said firmly, you need to step aside. The event is ongoing. Daniel's eyes widened. Wait, no. I'm her husband. Claire finally turned, her eyes soft but filled with a strength he had never seen. You were, she said simply. The guards took one step closer. Daniel backed up, panic lighting his face. Claire, please, don't do this, he whispered. But Claire didn't answer. She faced the microphones again. Before she could continue, a board member rushed toward the stage, pale and breathless. Claire, there's a problem, he murmured. Something's happening outside. Finance asked me to get you. You need to see this. A new wave of tension rippled through the room. Whatever awaited her wasn't finished yet. The first crack in Daniel's world had started before he even burst into the hall. At the gas station on his way to the conference center, his card had beeped red. Transaction declined. He had laughed it off at first. Tried another card. Declined. Tried the third, his emergency credit card. Declined again. Now, after being blocked by security and seeing Claire sign a merger worth more than anything he'd ever touched, the cracks were splitting open. He stumbled out of the press conference hall into the lobby, panic rising in his chest like fire. Reporters spilled out after him, whispering, filming, catching every piece of his unraveling. As he pushed outside toward the main entrance, a sleek company car sat parked exactly where he expected it. The car he bragged about, the one he earned, the one that came as part of his executive package. A man in a dark uniform stepped out, a representative from the finance department. Daniel Miller, the man asked. Yes, Daniel answered quickly, desperate for someone on his side. The man held out paperwork. Your company vehicle is being repossessed. Regulations. Daniel froze. What? Why? No. This is my car. It belongs to the company, the man said calmly. Your employment status is under review. You no longer qualify to keep it. As the man slid into the driver's seat, Daniel's breath shattered. What do you mean I don't qualify? He shouted. I've given 10 years to this company. But the car was already pulling away. A crowd outside the building watched him unravel. Confused reporters, employees, board members. Their eyes widened when his phone buzzed again. This time with a message from his bank app. All joint accounts have been restricted by primary account holder, Claire Miller. His vision spun. Claire did this. He rushed back inside, desperate now, sweating through his shirt. He pushed through the crowd, searching for someone in authority. He spotted a group of board members gathered in a glass-walled conference room, whispering, watching him, avoiding eye contact. One of them, Mr. Lawson, a senior board member, stepped forward. Daniel, he began slowly, we need to discuss some troubling information. What information? Daniel snapped, voice high and cracked. Mr. Lawson opened a folder and slid photos across the table. Photos of Daniel and Emily, kissing, touching, laughing behind Claire's back. The timestamps were recent, some from the event, some from last night at the hotel. Daniel's stomach dropped. We have a strict conduct policy, Mr. Lawson continued. Your affair with a subordinate contractor, combined with recent financial irregularities, leaves us no choice. Daniel's voice broke. No choice for what? You're terminated effective immediately, Lawson said. Your access to company systems, benefits, and assets has been revoked. Daniel's knees almost buckled. No, he whispered. No. I helped build this place. I gave everything to this company. The company belongs to its shareholders, Lawson replied quietly. Your behavior put us at risk. We wish you luck. Luck. He was being thrown out like trash. Daniel stumbled backward, bumping into a tall plant, knocking it over. Laughter rippled through the room, quiet but sharp. Somewhere in the background, a reporter's camera light blinked red, recording everything. He glanced around desperately, searching for Emily. He saw her near the door. She was texting rapidly, her face pale, her lips pressed tight. He rushed toward her. Emily, please, tell them it was a mistake. Tell them. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen inside. I can't do this, she said simply. Your wife is the CEO. This is too big. Emily, don't go. You said you loved. She shook her head, already turning away. I said I liked the lifestyle. Before he could answer, she walked out the door and blocked his number on her screen without even hiding it. He stood alone, breath shaking, heart collapsing. Then, a hand tapped his shoulder. Daniel turned slowly. It was a legal courier holding a thin envelope. For you, sir, court documents. Daniel ripped it open with trembling fingers. Petition for dissolution of marriage filed by Claire Miller. He stared at the words, throat burning. No, he whispered. No, she wouldn't do this to me. But she already had. He raced down the hallway, nearly tripping until he found her at the far end, surrounded by reporters, Mark the lawyer beside her, Lauren her assistant holding prepared press packets. Claire stood tall, soft, full, fat, gentle, but strong in a way he had never seen. Claire, he shouted, pushing through. Claire, please. She turned slowly, his voice cracked with desperation. I'll lose everything. Please don't do this. Please, I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. Her eyes softened for one small second, but not with pity, with truth. You lost me first, she said quietly. The words hit him harder than the termination, harder than the repossession, harder than Emily leaving. Claire stepped past him. Reporters parted for her. Mark walked beside her calmly. Lauren followed with documents in hand, and Daniel stood in the center of the hallway, destroyed. Tears spilled down his face. He called out one last time, voice broken. Claire, please. I've got nothing left. But she didn't turn around. She kept walking. At the end of the hallway, Lauren leaned close and whispered something Claire barely heard over the noise. There's still one more thing you have to face before this is over. Something cold slid through Claire's chest. Her most painful confrontation wasn't with Daniel. It was with the part of herself that still believed she didn't deserve to stand this tall. The pen slammed onto the desk, sharp, final, decisive. Months had passed since the day Daniel's world fell apart in that hallway. Now, in her new top-floor office with glass walls and quiet air, Claire Miller exhaled hard, her chest rising and falling as if she had just surfaced from deep water. Papers lay neatly stacked in front of her, but one document stood out on top, stamped in bold letters. Dissolution of marriage granted. The final piece, the end of everything that once held her down, the beginning of everything she had built alone. Silence settled around her. Peaceful now, not painful. The kind of silence she once used to survive, but now used to breathe freely. She leaned back in her chair. The leather hugged her soft, heavy body gently, without judgment. For the first time in years, she didn't shrink. She didn't hide. She didn't apologize for taking up space. She simply was. Her eyes drifted to the window, where the sun stretched across the city, warm and golden. For a moment, she allowed herself to reflect. Slowly, like turning pages in a story she had lived but never fully understood. A little girl in a foster home. Her dress too big, her voice too small. Learning that silence kept her safe. A young woman working late nights, eating alone, planning quietly, dreaming in secret, building her company brick by brick. One idea, one deal, one silent victory at a time. A wedding day. Daniel smiling, her heart hopeful, helping him pay his debts, packing his lunches, supporting him even when he forgot she existed. And then, the night he mocked her, the laughter, the spotlight on her size, the picture of him kissing another woman. The moment something inside her cracked and refused to break again. The night she walked outside the venue, shawl pulled tight, phone buzzing with the word urgent. The night she called Mark and decided her silence would finally speak. The montage faded. Claire wiped a quiet tear from her cheek, but it wasn't sadness. It was release. She turned back to the document and pressed her thumb onto the signature seal at the bottom of the decree. Final, legal, unbreakable. Her voice whispered softly into the quiet room. She didn't rise to destroy him. She rose to remember she never needed him. She touched the framed note beside her desk. Gregory's words. Silence is a weapon. Yes, it was. But today her silence felt like strength, not hiding. She gathered the documents, closed the folder, and stood tall, fat, soft, powerful, and free. Walking to the elevator, she breathed deeply, letting the chapter close behind her. At the hallway's end, Mark waited, offering a respectful nod. It's done, she said. He smiled warmly. Then the rest of your life begins. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Claire stepped inside. As they slid shut, her final thought lingered like a quiet storm about to break. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the storm you never saw coming. Fade out. I hope you enjoyed watching this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned from Claire's journey. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.